Welcome back. In this video, we are going to implement a drag and drop feature. As you can see here, I can click on one of those elements and hold it, and then I can drag it. So we can now drag cards here. As you can see, it will also update the database here once we do so, even though we have way too many progress dialogues, so we'll definitely have to take care of that at one point. But overall, you can see that the drag and drop feature works, and this is also stored in the database. So if I go back to my third board, you can see that it is still there as we expected it. Now the thing is that I will not implement the functionality in the videos, at least, where you can drag from one list to another. So let's say we have another list here, test 2. So I'm going to call it, and let me add a card here, card 2-1, for example, and then I cannot drag from one list to another, so that will not work. Even though there are ways to implement that, and I can even share you some code for that, but the code is too complex or too much basically for these videos, I think, because the project is already big enough. So if you really need that feature, check out the project at the end of the course. But for now, let's get started with this. So it all happens in this task list activity, but the actual magic happens in the adapter for it. So in the task list adapter. All right, so let's go over to our adapters here, task list item adapter. And in here, inside of the onBind view holder, at the very bottom, still inside this if clause, but at the very bottom, underneath our onClick listener here, that's where we can start the implementation. So while divider item decoration, which will be a divider item decoration object, in which I need to pass in the context. So I'm going to pass in the context as well as the settings for it, which will be divider item decoration dot vertical. Okay, so you have multiple decoration options here, vertical or horizontal. I'm going to use vertical here so that I can drag from top to bottom, or up and down, so to speak. Okay, so then we can now use this for our holder dot item view rv card list, and here we add the item decoration that we just prepared, so the divider item decoration to it. Then we need an item touch helper. So whenever you want to use the drag and drop stuff, the item touch helper is your friend. So val helper is going to be the item touch helper object, and here we need to create an object of the item touch helper simple callback. So let's import that, and here let's use item touch helper dot simple callback. So let's create an object of that. By the way, we need to add the object keyword here, simple callback, and the simple callback needs to know which directions you want to use. So I'm going to use item touch helper dot up or item touch helper dot down, and then the count or swipe directors I'm gonna set to 0. Okay, so this is just the header of my simple callback object. Now I need to implement some functions in there, and to be precise, the onMove function. So let's implement the members here, onMove and onSwiped. Let's add those two. You can see they will be automatically generated for us in here. So here we can now implement the functionality that should happen once we move. And I'm going to get the dragged position, so val dragged position, and the dragged adapter position. Okay, so by doing that, we can get it from the view holder here. Well, actually, it's called view holder, so I'm gonna call it dragged, so it's a little more understandable. So here, this is where I dragged it from, or what the adapter position of that is. And then I want to know the target position. So where does it come from and where does it go basically? So here target dot adapter position. And at that point, I will need a global variable which will store the drag position. Okay, so here, let's go ahead at the very top of our task list items adapter. I need to create a global variable for dragging. So here, private var m position dragged from, which I'm going to assign -1 to, and then private var m position dragged to, which I'm going to assign -1 as well. Okay, so if we do that, we definitely make sure that we have them at negative position, so to speak, so we know that it's a default statement or value that we assigned it here. All right, and now we can then check if the dragged or m dragged from is -1. Then we want to set the m position dragged from to the dragged position. So whatever the adapter position of the dragged value is, the recycler view holder, that should be the one. And then we should also set the m position dragged to as the target position. So whatever the target position is that we get from the onMove function, so to speak, is the one that we want to set for this global variable here. All right, next we need the collections. So here, collections, this class here, and it has a function which is called swap. So here we can swap list elements. So list at the position dot cards to be dragged position. And then we also need to pass in the target position. Okay, so we just say, okay, just reposition the cards here, or the position of the cards object. So here, inside of the array list, change the position of it. Okay, so that's what the swap function does. It just swaps those two. All right, and the next thing is that we need to notify our adapter that the word change is made, right? Otherwise, it will not know and it will not visually change anything. Okay, notify item moved is the function that we can call here, and then here we need to pass in the drag position to the target position. Okay, so those two objects were moved. Now our adapter knows about it as well, and the recycler view will display that accordingly. Now, of course, we still get an error here because our onMove function requires a boolean, and we can just return false here. So return true if moved and false otherwise. So that's what we do here. All right, in the task list activity itself, we will also need a function which will take care of moving things around. So let's create one here, which will be our fun update cards in task list. So task list position should be an integer, and then the cards that we want to change. So cards dot array or colon array list of cards. So these are the details that we want to have if this update is about to be called or should be called. So here, because we have cards that are not really cards, so if we look at it, we have this add card text here, which is not really a card, but it's still card of the array list. So we need to get rid of that by using this code here. And then we can set the mboard task list dot, or at the task list position dot cards to be the new cards that were passed to us. And here, of course, it's not a selector. And then we can show the progress dialog with the please wait statement. So we need to use the resources once again, and then we want to update it, and that is what we've done multiple times already. So this Firestore update task, add update the task list with the latest onboard details. All right, and then there's one last thing to do, and that is not the onSwiped function. So we don't want to throw an arrow if there is nothing happening in the onSwiped, so we can leave it as that. But we need to implement another function, so we need to override the clear view function. So that one will be called once the dragging and dropping is over. So once we're done with that, so what I want to do here is I want to check if the M position dragged from is not equal -1 and the M position dragged to is not equal -1, and also the M dragged position from is not equal the M dragged position to. Okay, so let's add this as well. It is not equal to this one here. So if all of that is true, then I want to call this update card list in task function. So what I can do here is I can now run context as task list activity dot update in cards in task list. Here we need to pass in the position and then the list of cards. So list position dot cards. And finally, we reset the M position from. So by the way, to make this a little more readable, I think it makes sense to add the square brackets here, or the curly brackets. So then it will be a little bit more readable. Okay, so then we can reset the values here to be -1 for the from value, and M position from or dragged to should also be reset to -1. Okay, so at this point we can test our application, because as you can see we are updating stuff here with update cards in task list. Now it's not grayed out anymore, it's yellow, which means that it is called, and it's called here. And then there's one last thing to do, and that is to use this item touch helper, because we prepared everything for it, but we are never actually using it. So at the very bottom of this whole helper thing, and that is just after this closing bracket, that's where we can then use helper dot attach to recycler view holder dot item view dot rv card list. Okay, and at this point our recycler view should have this pretty cool drag and drop feature. So let's test it on our device. There we are, board with image. So we have the list with 3 elements here. Let's click on card 3 and drag it around, and as you can see the cards drag around, so that seems to work totally fine. Okay, so that is the drag and drop feature. I hope you like it. Of course, it's not as cool as dragging and dropping from one card or list to another, so dragging a card from one list to another. But as I said, if you really need that, check out the super long code that you will need for that in the link attached. All right, so see you in the next video.